right now. So yes, it is recording. Okay, so we're going to talk about ebooks this afternoon, how to make an ebook from InDesign. So we're assuming that we've done the InDesign print version. So we're not going to go into all that stuff. I'm going to show you one I've done before, Blue Peter job here, as they call it, one I've done previously, which has got a few images in it and some tables of contents, and we can just show you, I can just run through how I did it, and then you guys can individually, when you get a project or you're doing a project, I know some of you are doing the couple of books at the moment. I'm happy to do sort of one-on-one sort of sessions. You send me the InDesign files or the EPUB file that you created and say, I can't get this to work, what do you think? And we can do a sort of one-to-one session on it. Yeah. So I'm going to try and share a screen. Let's just see if I can get this. Okay, so we've got, hopefully you can see a blank InDesign screen.
Yeah.
Oh, it's my mouse. Right. Okay, so what I'm going to do is yeah, I'm just checking it's, you can see that. Right, so I'm going to open folder. Okay, so these are all the books on Ringwood that we've done that I seem to have got copies of, files of. I'm going to look at Ruxton. Ruxton is the very relatively recent book, but the reason I'm going to use it as an example is that it's got some images in it, which is what I wanted to cover because it's the bit that most people fall down on and can't get it to work properly. It takes a lot of learning. It took me a lot of learning to get it right, and it isn't easy. What's the problem with ebooks is that the device you read them on can be very different, and so it can look fine on one device with one app, then you put it onto an Apple or read it on a Kindle emulator or some other ebook reader, and it just looks different, and it is an issue. We have to sort of, the basic one is to make sure it works as a Kindle, because that's the main selling route for these books, is to sell them through the Amazon, the horrible Amazon channel. We are where we are with that, I'm afraid. That's just, they seem to have collared the market. So you can see here, I actually had two folders here, which was, one was all my InDesign files for the print version, and a folder with all the images in it. So I've got a sort of nice, neat, I can't remember why I got this so neat, but anyway, all the design documents for the book, for the print book, are in this folder, along with the images. And you're familiar with the concept that you've got a whole host of documents. The book is divided into documents, and it's held together as a book file. Yeah. So if you're familiar with that concept, that's where we're at. So we have a book file, and the first thing I do with an ebook is not mess with that anymore. Right? I do not want to sort of start touching that, because if you want to reprint the print book, you don't want to mess with these files. You want to use these files. You may want to edit them slightly, but you want to keep these files intact. So I copied them all into a new folder called ebook, and you can see I've got basically yeah, the copies of all the things in here. I've got the book file, and so I've renamed them all. Yeah, so I don't get confused about what I'm doing with them. Yeah. I'm not going to edit the contents of them. I'm not going to edit the sort of the text or anything like that, but I am going to sort of there may be formatty things I need to change to make it work. So I'm going to open the book file first. What you might end up doing is, because you've got to rename them, you might want to create a brand new book file and then just link all the books. Let's just do that anyway. Yeah. Let's just close that. Okay, and we'll file new book. If you do file new book, it's going to want to look for some, what am I going to call it? Yes, I'm going to call it Ruxton test. And I'm going to stick it in the, stick it in that folder, Ringwood. Just trying to be neat here, just to be sure I don't lose everything. Can't spell, can I? Type too fast for my own brain. Okay, so if you're not familiar or you haven't done this, you should have done this in any sort of print book. You'll see that you've then got a book file, and it's going to want to know how many documents you're going to put in this. Yeah, so I'm going to add documents to this, and it always goes back to where you were last in. I was doing geology guide on this the other day. Drive, Ringwood, Ruxton, ebook. Okay, so the documents I want for this ebook are all that lot, right? Why it was called Bing Crosby, because one of the acknowledgements was a Bing Crosby. I didn't do the book. I mean, I didn't do the editing of the book. Because these are all on a server, that's fine. Right, it's going to come up with these in a second. Yeah. Don't understand. Oh, the problem is that because I've upgraded a version of InDesign, only one of these is the one that's colored in. Can you see the one that's colored in the icon?
Yeah.
Right, it needs to upgrade them, all the white ones, because they're the previous version. So just excuse me while I just have to fiddle with this to get it right. You can see it's changing this happens. If you'll come across this. It's just InDesign seem to produce a new release every year so if you've done it on the old release, you'll find that it wants to upgrade it and overwrite it and all that sort of nonsense. Didn't used to do that. Okay, so having survived that trial, I've now got my 4 documents. Yeah, 4? I thought there was a 5th. Have I got 4? That one, still got that one missing. 5, it should be 5. Sorry about this. But these are just the sort of things that you end up getting, trip you up anyway. Okay, so I've now got 5 documents of my book. All I've jumped the step where I renamed them. You can see I put ebook in the title. So basically I've saved a copy of the file, renamed it with ebook in it, created a new book file, and I've loaded the 4 or 5 documents you have into my new ebook book. The problem is in the wrong order. You can see that's the wrong order, so that you can do this. We can just move these around. I can go up there. I think the acknowledgements is probably, I think that one's next. And we'll push that up there. This takes a while sometimes because it has to repaginate it every time it does that. I think the dedication came in somewhere near there. I think the acknowledgements was at the bottom. Okay. Right, while we're on this little page here, in this little box here, there's a little box on the left-hand corner here called the style source. It's very important that you remember that style source needs to be the first document. The reason will come clear when we come to do tables of contents. I learned through a lot of trial and tribulation that I couldn't get the table of contents to work properly. So I was creating a table of contents in the first document near the front of the book, obviously, and I couldn't get it to reappear in the ebook. Even when I went to test it on every device, I just couldn't get it until I Googled it. And as you do, you end up spending hours Googling things, and eventually it becomes clear that the style source needs to be the document with the table of contents. The table of contents needs to be in the document that is the style source. That's obviously a quirk of InDesign. It's just the way it works. It's a tag for the file, and the table of contents doesn't seem to work properly unless it's in the right file. So it's important that you put that there. Okay, so we now have 5 documents in the right order, and we can, so what we don't do, I think some of you have been involved in creating or setting up or seeing that we sometimes in the print books we have a catalogue at the back with sort of Ringwood books. We find that's a bit fiddly in the ebook, and people never look at it anyway. So we don't usually bother with the catalogue bit in the ebook. We just keep the book a bit cleaner than that. So let's just have a look at the first file here. Let's look at this. Okay, so basically we've got the pretty much the same as the print book. You recognize these things. And I have a table of contents here, which I'm going to show you how to do it in a minute. There's a table of contents, which is not what was in the. So what I had was I actually created here a blank page, which I'll redo in a minute to create the table of contents. It's automatic. You don't need to work out the pagination. You can also see that it's a table of contents without page numbers. Because remember, an ebook is going to flow, and the page size and the pagination will completely depend on the device you're reading it and the font size you're using to read it. So the concept of page numbers doesn't really apply to an ebook. Although the main document in here will probably have its original pagination still on it. Luckily, the EPUB routine just ignores it. But the contents page, what's going to do on the ebook is turn these chapter numbers, all these lines here will turn into hyperlinks when we turn this into into an EPUB file. And these will allow you to navigate the ebook and jump. When you click on chapter 3, it'll jump you to chapter 3. Simple as that, really. Well, let's just check what this Bing Crosby file was. It was something about Bing Crosby. It was just a dedication or whatever. Oh, that's anything about Bing Crosby. Maybe it's in the dedication. Where's the dedication? I'm worried about this dedication. I can't see it. Oh. Title of they seem to be the same file. Oh, that's not wrong somewhere else. Anyway, right, okay. What's this? Okay. I'm going to take this one out because I don't like it. I think there's something wrong with this one. It's the same folder, same file. I think it must have done when I did the conversion there. I must have made a mistake somewhere. Anyway, I'm going to take it out. It doesn't really matter for the sake of training anyway. Okay, so we've got a title page, title chapter document, a one-page thing here in the body of the book, which starts with chapter 1, obviously. Yeah, and we'll go on to look at images in a second. It's trying to download some, because I've got it on a OneDrive, it's trying to download a few things, which is why it's slowing up a bit. And then we've got the acknowledgements at the bottom, which have got the I'm not sure what this is. Anyway, I'm not going to worry about it at the moment because that seems to be. Oh, that's at the beginning. That's why the author wanted that at the beginning, not at the end. So what we need to do is move that up a bit. Actually, it should have been there because I think. Yeah, because there's a forward. There's the Bing Crosby thing. Yeah. Right, so all that was at the beginning with the preface and the author's note. That's right, that all begins at the beginning. That's fine. That's what it should. That's where it should be. Okay. So the critical thing now, because you could actually now go to here, this little drop-down box here, and say export book to EPUB, because you've got all the documents in the right order. You've got a new thingy. We've now created a table of contents, which I haven't done yet, but we've got one. So at this point, this is the point you could create the EPUB and see what it looks like. Yeah. But we're not going to do that just yet. But that's how you do it. You do it from that little menu there. Yeah. So in this little book thing here, it's quite small, isn't it? But there's a little drop-down box here, and you can do all sorts of things in here. Save the book, which you would do. I would save it. Yeah. You can also pre-flight it. Pre-flighting means it's a sort of it runs a check on there's nothing stupid. Yeah. So you can, but often the document down here tells you you've got a little thing called no errors here, which is no errors in that document. But you can also, it's good to keep checking these things. So there are some things you can do in here which you would have used, I guess, in producing a print book about book numbering, page numbering, document numbering, all that sort of thing. But we don't need to worry about that in this bit. We've got other things to worry about instead. We've got things like paragraph styles to worry about, which is the key thing, which I'm going to sort out first, and then we'll look at the book, then we'll do the table of contents, and then we'll do images. Okay. So the critical thing on an ebook is that when you do the EPUB file, it ignores page breaks. So if you put a page break in, and let's go to the main text. So if you go to if you're familiar with the way InDesign works, you can see this. You probably can't see it on your screens. It's very small, but at the end of this chapter here, to make it jump to the next page for chapter 2, there's a little blue dot. Familiar with that? That's the insert page break command in InDesign that jumps you from there. When you look at all your if you view all your text threads. Right. This is very useful. This tells you how the document flows, by the way. You may have seen this. I'll just shrink the document down a bit using Control-, but you can see this is a little like it gives you a little roadmap of how the document is flowing. If any of those cross over, the ebook will be a bit of a mess. Yeah. Okay, but you can see I've got each text box is flowing from one to the other. So it's a good test to go through. That's on View, Extras, Hide or Show text threads. You can toggle it on and off. But if you've got those, and people they move pages about sometimes by accident or whatever you've done, and you'll get into a complete fankle if this gets into spaghetti. And I've seen it happen. People have come back to me and said, I can't get the book, looks stupid. It looked fine when I printed it, but it looks stupid as an ebook. It's all over the place. And that's because for some reason these boxes got moved. People moved the text, but they actually cut and copied the text, but they actually moved the box at the same time, because you could take that box, and if I stuck it over here, the text thread's going to get all sort of crossed over. Yeah, if I swap that text with that, I'll get a complete spaghetti tangle of pages, and it would just flow badly. So you can just see I've got that. That looks okay. I'm sure it's fine. I'd have noticed it by now if it was wrong. So InDesign, EPUB does not like or does not recognize those page break commands. Right, so that's that one. There's another one. So each chapter here, we jump to make in the copy editing process, we jump from page to page to chapter by using the insert page break command here, which got me from there to here. But as I said, the EPUB is going to ignore that, and if we didn't do anything, the EPUB would just have chapter 5. Chapter 5 would just run straight here, yeah, which would not look very clever, yeah. When you're running an EPUB, when you're reading it on a device, it's fine reading it, but you want you don't care what the pagination is doing because your device is controlling that, what you see on each page. But when you get to the end of a chapter, maybe it's a personal preference, but I like to see the next chapter, the new chapter at the top of a page. Just makes reading sense rather than having it halfway down the page. You can do that, but I prefer, and I think most people prefer, to sort of, and it helps with the navigation as well, that it does start a new page. And you can do that by making sure that the chapter heading is a consistent paragraph style. Now, hopefully you would have used that in your print book anyway. If I go to paragraph styles, that should be titles. This one happens to be called titles. Whoever did this at the first time round called that a title. And hopefully every chapter heading has got the same. Let's see if we can find a chapter heading, chapter 4. Yeah, if I click on it, it's titles. Yeah, you can also see it up. If you click on this top line, you can see it here on the in this toolbar at the top that it's titles. This should be something like subtitle. Yeah, and it's, what's this one? Subtitle as well. So this is paragraph style titles, and we can, ebooks will recognize, and you can force it to do a page break where it sees a particular paragraph style. So if the chapter headings are a unique paragraph style and only used for the chapter headings, you can force, we could show you in a minute, you can force it to page break at each time it comes to that particular paragraph style called titles, which is what we need to do. And also that, by calling them titles or calling them something, chapter heading, doesn't matter what you call it, as long as it's consistent. You need to do that to get the table of contents to work, because the table of contents works on paragraph styles as well. So although you could, for a print book, you could fiddle it, you could just change that to whatever it happens to be, Calibri, 14, bold, blah, blah, blah. You could just force it. Yeah, you don't need to give it a style at all to make it do a print book. Yeah, you can get away with murder in a print book to create the PDF. I don't have to use paragraph styles at all. I just like in Microsoft Word or something, you just copy, you just select it and change its font and color or whatever it wants to do, and it will look fine. It'll come out as a PDF perfectly, no problem. But it'll make a messy ebook, which won't work. Your table of contents won't work. So, so it's important that every chapter, every time you want a page break to happen in the ebook, make sure it has a paragraph style, and then the ebook table of contents will also jump to that same place. So when it hits, when the user clicks on chapter 3 in the table of contents in the navigation bar of their device, it'll jump to there. That's simple. You just really need to be consistent and make sure but if you do it in the print book, you'll, at least in the print book, you will make sure that all your headings are the same style. There's not a rogue one that's suddenly Calibri 12 or 415 and one's not bold. And you know, so if you use the paragraphs, apply the paragraph style to each to the right thing, and be consistent with the paragraph styles, the print book will be fine. You'll stop any errors getting in there, and you'll get a better ebook. Okay, let's just quick look at tables of contents now we've talked about it, and then we'll just create an ebook from this and see where we get to. So as I said, the table of contents is in here. I'm going to delete this table of contents and then start from scratch. Okay, so you need to create a new blank page, really. This probably didn't have a page in here. You can use the page command here. I'll just get rid of this page and then add another one. I'll get rid of this one, delete this page. Okay, so that was my original document, shall we say? Yeah, I just had a title page and a copyright page. Yeah? So I would use the page command, page toolbar here to create a new page. There's several ways you can do it. You can actually do it from the drop down here as well. You can have insert pages if you want to put several in. Yeah, or you can actually just use a little shortcut down the bottom here, create a new page. If you clicked on, if you're actually selected on page 2, it'll just create a new one after page 3, after page of page 3. Right. Okay, so to create a table of contents, you need to go to layout, table of contents, and it'll ask you. Right, this is already been pre-populated because it's actually already done it. But anyway, I wanted to call the thing. Contents, I presume it's in uppercase, maybe the chapter headings are in uppercase, and I want to use the style of titles. I want it still to look, the title of the word contents to still look like the other ones, like chapter headings. Let's just remove this. Then what you want to do is create the table of contents based on the paragraph style, which is why I was rabbiting on about paragraph style. It needs to be title, so you put that in here. Now you can nest these things if you have a very complicated technical document. We had done before. We'll try to show this on the screen. This is the geology book that I did, and you can probably see the table of contents there, which has pagination and leader dots. And it also has an indentation. There's two levels, nested levels of contents. So techie books, textbooks, you'll see at uni and whatever, all have complicated things. So you can have a whole nested style of paragraphs. I tend not to bother with ebooks, certainly not for fiction books. Just the chapter headings is enough. If you've got a complicated fiction book that has, like, quite a lot of them have like parts, like 3 parts, and each part's got 4 or 5 chapters, you might want to nest the part and then then the paragraph, the chapter numbers below the part. Yeah, so let's say you wanted to do that on this example, you could put the subtitles here. You can see it's indented. See that? Yeah. So this would give you a table of contents with all the subtitle lines as well, which you don't really want to do, but just with a mess. But nevertheless, I'll keep that like that. And you need to have a style for the for that, yeah. And you don't want to have the same style; it'll just come out as Calibri 14 bold. So you need to have you need to choose a style for the text to work, and you often want to create a new style with a table of contents style. So I'll look at this in a second, but you create a style for that. And sometimes when you create it to start with, this will be switched off. Include book documents. Yeah, you need to do that because you're going to have all the documents that are linked to this book. So quite a lot of complicated things to think about in here. And if you click on more options, it'll say, do you want page numbers? And normally, the one I just showed you, the printed version, I would say, yes, I want the page number and I want to do tabs and leaders and all sorts of formatting to get the table. But this is an ebook, so we don't need it. So we don't need a page number. It's simple. It's actually easier to do an ebook table of contents than a print one. Certainly, that one with the nested indents and the leaders, dots, and the page numbers is quite hard to do. It takes a bit of working to get that to work properly. Okay, so I hit OK. I think I've done enough at the moment just to get this working basically. And what you get is a thing called a loaded cursor. Can you see my loaded cursor floating around here? And I'm going to put it here. Probably didn't create a frame, but I'll just see. It'll probably create its own frame if I click it in here somewhere. Yeah, it's created a frame. You can see it's put it in a frame here, and you can see it's generated for me. It's generated it's put it in the right box as well. So I've got a new box here with all the things. It doesn't matter that it's not looking that nice with the spacings and that sort of thing, but it's only navigation. It's only for navigation anyway. If you wanted to be more spaces between that, you just have to edit your table of contents paragraph style. And you could let's do that for a moment, just a quick. So I go to paragraph styles. Let's just make sure I'm not selected first. Paragraph styles. So table of contents body text was what I used here. And you can open a paragraph style and you can edit it. And if I wanted, for example, to have a millimeter of space between each line, I could go to here, basic character formats, where is it? Indents and spacing, space after 1 millimeter. Okay, ta-da! Isn't it wonderful? So if you wanted to play around with your table of contents to make it look pretty, which you would certainly be doing if you were in a print book, you'd certainly be doing a lot of messing around with the table of contents. Once you've got it right, it doesn't lose it, so you can keep tweaking it and tweaking it till you're happy with it. So that would work at the moment. And what I'm going to do is create the ebook out of that now, yeah, and then we'll go and look at images. because there's no point in doing the ebook until at least you've got this bit done, yeah, and then you're going to play around with some images. So what I'm going to do is save the book. I'll probably save these documents as well. I can do it later. Right, let's just do export book to EPUB, because we need to go through these. There's a whole lot of dialog boxes that come up that we do need to do. So the first thing it comes up with is what you're going to call it. It defaults to the file name, the book name you gave it. So this is Ruxton Text EPUB. That's absolutely fine. I don't want to stick it in my new book, Geology new book folder at all. I'll just get totally utterly messed up with that. So I'll leave it. Windows is never really intuitive. It doesn't really. It just goes back to the thing you last did. Right, there we are. Ruxton. The bottom one's important because you want to make sure that it's picking up EPUB reflowable. Yeah, there are lots of options. If you didn't put it as a file name at all, if you didn't have this here, it would actually give you several options down here. I think. Nope. Just right. Okay. I'm a bit used to do that. This is a new version. Oh, it's going to give you a reflowable document, ones that flows and changes around as you change your device enough, and it'll add a .epub file name extension to it. So once you've done that, this is the reflowable layer option. This is the horrible 5 or 6 windows that come up with which control exactly how your ebook is going to work. Excuse me, I just drink some of this tea. It's getting very cold. Okay, just some of these things are not, some of these dialog boxes are not important and some are very important, and it's just a question of recognizing which ones you've got to think about and which ones you can just ignore. So I'll go through them fairly slowly because they're important here. There's a drop down here and there are 2 options for EPUBs. There are 2 sort of standard worldwide standards for EPUB. There's EPUB 2 and EPUB 3. EPUB 2 is a legacy thing for old devices, and it doesn't handle images very well, but it was written for the first generation of Kindles, the first generation of smartphones, which didn't handle graphics very well, and it's quite simple. We tend to. I've never had a complaint about using EPUB 3, even though the default is EPUB 2. I always click EPUB 3 because I think it seems to be standard, and most readers will cope with it quite well. And if you've got any images, and as we move more and more, as you get more and more involved in publishing, I'm sure some of these EPUBs, we've tried it with sound, with video files. There are all sorts of things you can do with EPUBs to sort of in the multimedia sense. In that case, you definitely need EPUB 3. If you're going to embed a video in an ebook, use EPUB 3. Now, for Amazon Kindle, and for majority of EPUB sort of outlets, it tends to be that the text is handled differently from the cover, just like when we send it to printers. Yeah, you'll send the print PDF of the document starting at the title page, but you'll send the cover as a separate folder. Amazon Kindle works exactly the same way. When I go to put them on, to upload them to Kindle on the Kindle generation program, it wants the document file and a separate cover, the cover to be separate, not embedded in it. So the cover option is there's 3 options here. Yeah, none, which is what we're going to choose. Rasterize the first page, which basically means if you've got a sort of title page, it will turn it into a sort of pseudo cover, or you can actually put an image in, which is if you wanted to produce an EPUB. Let's say you want to produce it. Some of you may be familiar with Glassbox, which is a little app we've been using to try and as an alternative to Amazon. I think and you want to send an EPUB to a reviewer, you might want to put the cover image in the single file. So if you're sending an EPUB to somebody to read as an EPUB on their reader without using Amazon or anything like that, you might want to put the image in as the first page. So this, when I say choose image, you would then go to the image file in your directory and find the image for the cover and stick it in. but we're going to put none at the moment because the majority of times we use this is to generate a Kindle version, so we don't want to cover. Sorry about that, it's a bit long and winded, but then it says navigation TOC. We've got what TOC is, table of contents, and we need to, if we don't do anything, it will just give you a table of contents, which will give you a list of the documents. Remember we had 4 documents, so the table of contents, if you didn't do anything, would just list the 4 documents with their funny names, which might be okay to start with. It's no good to a reader. They don't want to know your document names. That's irrelevant to them. They want to be able to navigate chapters. So you need to down click this here and hit the multi-level TOC style. Why it's called that? No idea, but that's the one you want to select. That will mean it will hunt for a TOC file. There'll be somewhere in the guts and the gubbins of InDesign, somewhere that thing you created, this with the chapter numbers on it, will be a .toc somewhere hiding in the file, and it needs to. This will tell it to look for it. If you didn't put that, it wouldn't look for it. It would look for just file, and it defaults to the file names. It'll give you 4 navigation points, but it's just the 4 file names. I've just realised this is going to be a silly ebook because I've got the. No, that's fine. That's fine. Sorry, just talking something. Right now, the critical last thing to do. Don't worry about the content based on page layout. That's fine. That just leaves as it is. Don't touch that one. This is the important one about splitting the document. This is where you can use the paragraph style to create splits. It calls it splits rather than page numbers because the concept of pages doesn't work in an EPUB. It's a split document. Yeah. And you can click here, single paragraph style, and you drop down. Hopefully it will find all the paragraph styles you've got in this document, and you will find titles or whatever you've called it. So that's the important thing. Having gone through all that nonsense, we've just been talking about paragraph styles and making sure all your chapter headings are the right style. Yeah, that's how it picks up for the table of contents, and that's how it picks up here to create the ebook. That's where you need to put it. Yeah. So if you've got that page like that, looking like that, you will at least create an EPUB now, which will have a table of contents in it. It may not be right, but it will at least have one. You can then look at it and tweak it. It will also have the document split by every time the document sees a new title, a new paragraph with the title in it, it will create a new page. Hallelujah. Now, we don't need to worry too much about the text one because we've not got complicated text here with footnotes and lists and all sorts of things. So, and if you've not got any images, you don't need to worry about the next one. Object means images, yeah, and we're going to come on to that in a second because we're going to use this when we look at images, but I'm going to just skip this for the moment because we're assuming at the moment that this is a document without images. Yeah? All the rest of the stuff, thankfully, you can forget, really. You don't need to worry too much about conversion setters and character style sheets and all that sort of nonsense at the moment, all the Java. But you will need to look at metadata. And I just wanted to cover metadata. Metadata is electronic information about the book that's embedded into the file that makes it searchable and retrievable through searching. So it's important that the metadata is in it. Okay, you can search in Amazon for it, but if you were just doing a search on Google for a particular thing, it's the metadata that's embedded into the file that you create that helps it be discoverable. Yeah? That makes sense. I'm sure you're familiar with the concept. Yeah? So I have added some metadata to this thing here already. You can see here I've got it creates the identifier it creates automatically, but the other stuff you can type in if you hadn't already typed it in, and I'll show you how to type it in to the file itself. But this gives you a check that you've got some metadata in here. So I've got the title, the creator, the blurb. Yeah. It hasn't got the publisher, so I could actually, that might be useful to put in. So I could put that in. And it's got some keywords as well, which is handy. Okay. Right. Now, I'm going to tick this because this is when I create the EPUB, it's going to automatically put it into whatever EPUB reader I've got on my PC. The only one I've got on this PC at the moment is the rubbishy thing from Adobe called Digital Editions. But you may have something else on your laptop that is the app that you will like to use just to give it to sort of read a book on your own laptop. The other option is you don't have any default viewing app here. You just create the EPUB, then you just go to the EPUB in its directory. It creates an EPUB file in the directory that you've got, and then you can just double click on it and open it in whatever reader. This just saves you an extra few clicks, that's all. And you can add applications here if you had an app, but you need to know where its location is. You need to know where its bloody directory location is. And sometimes you buy an app off the Microsoft Store or something like that. I've no idea where it hides sometimes, so I can never find the damn thing. I've got several. I've got Thorium Reader, Lithium Reader. I could never find it. Got it on the phone. It works fine. Anyway, so we're going to use it on what I tend to do is open it up in Digital Editions just to see if it's not stupid, and then I will email it to myself and open it on various devices. I'll email it to Isabel and open it on the Apple Kindle application. I'll look at it on a Kindle app. I'll look at it on all sorts of different apps. Once I'm nearly happy with it, I'll just get it right first time, mainly right first time using one app, and then I'll tweak it and make sure it works on the other apps. Okay, so let's leave that on. This is actually now going to go away and create an EPUB file. Yeah, you can see it's got a little dialog box, and it's now it comes up with errors. Sometimes they're red and they're disastrous ones that you've made a complete boo-boo of it, and other ones it just comes up with weird and wonderful rubbish like that, which I've never understood. I've actually Googled what it means by an external text anchor not found, and it's never really got any sense, and it doesn't seem to be a problem. But if you do get some weird and wonderful messages and your EPUB doesn't work, then you get back to me. Take a photograph of that or something of the error message. Google it yourself if you get an error message that really looks a bit weird. I mean, this is where I found out the table of contents didn't work, so I didn't have the style sheets in the right places, blah, blah, blah. So I learned a lot by these error messages that came up, and the only one that I still get is this one, and I never understand it anyway. So I'm going to hit OK. It should go away now, and it should fire up the Digital Editions. Yes, it's going to do that, right? So the beauty of it is it's just fired it straight up without me having to go into it at all. Okay. So it's now created an EPUB file, which I can look at on here. On Digital Editions, you're not seeing it, which is why I've got a monitor over there. So it's a different screen. So let's stop this share. This is going to be a nuisance, isn't it? I'm going to share a different screen, which is this one. Okay. I can see what you're seeing now. Right, so you're now seeing a split screen with the book on the right-hand side and a sort of navigation panel on the left-hand side. Now, if I click on Table of Contents, we should have a table of contents. And if I click on a bit of it, like Chapter 4, it should come to Chapter 4. So that's your first test, to make sure that your navigation is taking you to the right places. Does the book actually look right? Yeah. And if I go back a page here, you can see here that go back a few pages. Right, there's one. The chapters are happening at the top of a page. It is breaking the document up. Yeah. This text actually stops here. Yeah. After this doctor and wife bit here. Yeah. Bit of white space. Next page. Bang. Chapter 4. Now, that may just be my aesthetics. I just wouldn't like to see Chapter 4 halfway down that page. This looks wrong to me. And then you've got the pictures, which we'll come on to in a second. And then Chapter 5. Okay. So that looks like it's working okay. You can, the EPUBs, obviously, you can play around with the fonts. So I can look at That's looking at sort of larger. I mean, in digital editions is a rubbishy EPUB reader, but it does to get the basics right. If things are wrong in this, it's going to be wrong in any reader. So it's well to use something like this. Depends what you've got on your PC. Don't get anything special. If you've got an EPUB emulator reader on a PC or on a Mac, just use it and just making sure it works. The acid test will come when you have to give me the file at the end of the day to put it on Amazon. The only reason is for historic reasons. I started off putting the EPUBs through the Kindle program in my own personal Amazon account. That was a fatal error. I should never have done that. I should have created a brand new Amazon account for all the EPUBs, and then I could have given that password to anybody and they could have edited and messed around with it, but it's not. It's in my personal, so all 38 or 40 odd ebooks that we've done are sitting in my personal Amazon account, and it would be silly of me to give the password and username with all my credit card details to people. I don't trust, not that I don't trust you, I just don't want to do it. It's just common sense. So eventually, and I have tried talking to all sorts of Amazon bots and all Amazon chat lines. Can we get these out of there and put them into a new Amazon account? And it's like, no, it's just not going to happen. So unfortunately, when you finished your EPUB file, you've got to send it to me and I'll put it into Amazon. And that also, the process of doing that gives me a final check of it too. So I can look at it in my EPUB readers. I can also, when you put it into Amazon, it does a check as well and gives you an emulation of what it will look like to the punter buying it. So that also gives me a check. Oh, that doesn't look right. Well, I can go back to you and say, no, we need to change that, or that doesn't look quite right. It usually does. I usually picked up in the dialogue we've had up till then. I've usually picked up any issues you've had with images and contents tables and stuff. Anyway, yeah. So that's pretty much it in terms of the documentation, the document. And if you had not got any images to worry about, this is where you'd stop. You just tweak it and tweak it and tweak it, keep messing with it, tweaking the table of contents, tweaking any bits and pieces you're not happy with, and you'd end up with a nice EPUB that we could publish. If you've got images, you're on a completely different game, because it's a bit difficult, I find. So I'm going to get out of there, and now I'm going to go back to sharing my InDesign screen. I'm going to share screen again. This one. Okay. I've lost you all now. I've moved you off the screen. I'm just confusing myself here. I've got 3 screens open. I've got dual monitors for Zoom, and then I've got my other monitor pretending to be one of you over here. So I keep looking. That's why I keep looking in 3 different directions. All right. So let's have a quick look at images, and then we'll give up, and you can sort of have a go at your own project. So in the book, let's see if we can find an image. Oh, here's the first one. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll let's just put another image in. Move this out of the way. Let's just pretend we're going to put another image in here. So I would create a text frame or a rectangle frame and stick it in here. So I'm just going to duplicate this picture of Ruxton here. So I'm going to stick a frame in. This little picture up here, if you've never used these things, this tells you, do you want to wrap the text? No. Do you want to wrap it round the box? Do you want to jump it? I'm sure that one is. Wrap it round a shape. Have you got a funny shape? But I never use that one. I always tend this one. So this is actually, you can see this one. The text has jumped across the picture. Yeah. So jump is the usual, and for an ebook, definitely use jump. Don't try and wrap it. Kirsty's seen my geology book. She sees I wrap text around the things. If you've got an image in the corner of a page, you don't want to fill the whole page. You want the text to sort of flow around it. Of course, with the flowing one, you can actually got a funny shape. You can, if you're doing a kid's book, you can get the text to flow around the duck, whatever you've drawn. Right. So that's wrap, and that's jump. So we're going to use jump. Yeah. You can move it around here so that they can see if I get it centered on the page. Yeah, which is there. Yeah, get it nice. Get the thing where I want it. And the critical thing is to anchor it, yeah, because the ebook needs to know where this is going to come. So in a print book, I could leave it like that. That would print. That picture would print if I put a picture in it. It would print there quite happily, right? Into PDF, it would just recognize that that's where I want it. I've moved it exactly where I want it, and the PDF would honor that. EPUB would just ignore it. It would put it somewhere completely different. I don't know where it goes. Sometimes it puts it at the end, in the middle, upside down. But if it's not anchored, it doesn't know what to do with it. So you've got to anchor it, and that's the way you do that. Is to, well, I'm going to actually just move this down slightly just to get to that paragraph break above it. Yeah, can you see how? So move that down. Yes. See how I put it underneath this paragraph break, and I'm going to anchor it by picking this little top blue box here and drag it into that paragraph marker there. It should draw a little line. It's done something with the font here, which I don't quite understand. It did something with the spacing here, which I'm going to have to check, because it does that sometimes, and I don't quite understand it. But nevertheless, the point is, at the moment, I've anchored it to that, and whenever this bit of text comes on a screen, on your screen reader, the image will follow. Get the image in, file, place. It's a very standard practice here. Those who've not done images, it then looks for something. Oh, boring rocks. Let's move away from rocks. I do have some pictures of in an image file under Ruxton somewhere. So when I'm wearing so many hats, I get totally lost sometimes where I'm doing different jobs here. Ruxton. Images. Okay. So these are the images that the editor gave me, editor and author gave me. And this is the one we used, obviously, in that. Yeah. Let's put it in here, and you have to do two things to do an image, right? You have to do fitting. Well, two things within fitting. Fit content proportionally. Ta-da. And then fit frame to content. And if you want to put a border around the frame, which I usually do, you can do that. It's now got a black border, which is what now I've emulated exactly that thing, yeah. And this is anchored as well. You can see that's anchored to that. Yeah, when you click on it, the little anchor button comes up, and you can see it's anchored to that. So it's about getting the image in the right place, getting it jumping, getting it centered, getting it anchored, getting it framed, getting it proportional, getting it fitting. All that gubbins and nonsense needs to happen to every image that you've got. And this is where Kirsty's heart will fall, because there's so many bloody images in the geology book that dealing with all these images and all the captions is the biggest heartache with the geology book, because it's got so much visual material in it. I mean, Ruxton's got 8 or 9 images. Geology book's got about 20 images per chapter. So the other thing, just to put the caption in here, there are different ways of doing captions, and you may find a better way than I've ever done. But in the 5 or 6 years I've been doing ebooks, the way I can only get captions to work is to actually put them into the text, yeah, as an extra line in here. So I would actually just type it or whatever. I'll just copy this one. Edit, paste, yeah, break. And I probably had a paragraph style for this. Let's just see. Well, it's got the right thing anyway. You might want to use a paragraph style for it as well, but I might want to center it, and I might want to put a millimeter or 2 after it. Okay. So that's basically it. I've now got my picture in the center of the page and I put it in the center and I put a caption. But the caption, I've tried all sorts of things about trying to see that caption. Is sometimes I put the caption in a box and have two boxes and group the boxes. It never works properly. It always seems to be a mess. So you can play around with it, but we tried all sorts of things about trying to have the caption linked to the thing. So I could have done this. Yeah, I could create a new box, make it a text box. Oops. Yeah, let's just put it over here. Make it a text. Put some text in it. Hit paste. Okay, so I've got the caption as a box. Yeah, I can mess around with that. Yeah, and I could instead of doing that, I could have tried that. Move it down a bit. Now, again, if you did a PDF, that would work. That would be fun. And people have done that, and that's the geology books. That's exactly how they're done. The captions are in little boxes in a different font, and the captions and the pictures I can move about. Yeah, but the question is, how do you link that? You can do several things. You can try linking it. You can try anchoring it to the same anchor point. Sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. You could try all sorts of other things. You could try grouping them. Grouping is a way that we've that in InDesign you tend to do. You can select. I think you probably have to ungroup it, unanchor it. You could select several objects. Let's say you had this one over here. Let's just have text box, text, paste. Right, so over here, say that was the caption for the picture, say, and you select this one. To release it, and then you can select it together. You can do object group, then you can try and anchor the group to that place. Yeah, but I never seem to get it to work. But you might try it. You might think that's easier. After trial and error, I found that doing it by just putting the text as part, the caption as part of the text is the most bomb-proof way of doing it. That's all. And there you go. That's pretty much it for images. You just need to then, when you go to create the image, when you go to create the thing, I'm going to just get rid of all this stuff because it's just a mess at the moment. Let's just get rid of its object. Object, anchored object, release, object, ungroup. That's fine. Let's get rid of this extra bit here. Oops. Object, release, delete. Select it first. Object, anchored object, release. So I hope you got the message that images is a bit of a mess, yeah, and can cause a bit of grief. Yeah. Let's just see what it looks like as we go and create the EPUB file. Yeah, let's just do that and see what it looks like. This is where you need, when you go to this third box down and you want to change these things, you might want to change these buttons around, change it to relative to text flow. You might want to make sure that the pictures are aligned center. Never quite got this one right sometimes. It depends, sometimes it's fixed. Fixed seems, as a default, it seems to work all right. You can play around with spacings as well. But I tend to just put align center, and then you've got this other buttons up here to preserve layout. So sometimes it's worth just playing around with these things, because this is where you can bring it into an EPUB reader and it doesn't look right, the picture doesn't work properly. And you can go around and play with these things using existing images, and it depends on which one works best for you when you try it. I tend to think the default one tends to work okay, but I have messed around with these things in the past to get it to work. Let's just see what it looks like. So it should go off and produce a thing which I'm going to have to show you on another screen save, don't I? Screen share. Right, just share this, then we'll stop, because I'm sure you're all fed up with this stuff. Share screen. Okay, let's just see, find where the image, that image was. It was in chapter 1, wasn't it? Oh, I seem to have lost it. I didn't save it, did I? That was the point. Okay, so this is, you can see here, these, I've done those images in the same way. Yeah, they've come out here, but when in digital editions doesn't handle the images very well. It just makes sure that they're in the right place. It looks, they look a bit diddy, yeah. This is why you need to try export it into some other reader that you're actually going to use, like on a piece, on a laptop or on a phone or something, and just see what it looks like. And that's why playing around with those little buttons on the image thing you can get different sizes of image depending on the reader. I mean, I use Lithium on my phone, and when you click on the little image of the EPUB file, and I'm going to show you on this, it's not going to work, is it? But you probably can't see, there's a picture there, looks like a diddy picture in the middle of the EPUB file, in the middle of the reader. But if I click on it, the photograph enlarges, and I can do that with my fingers and see the picture. So it doesn't, on most EPUB, that's the way to do it, because then basically that's better than the print book, because that's actually, there's a better resolution on that than there is on that document. When I print it in my geology book, that's hard to see that, but I can see that a much better detail on the EPUB. So it's actually quite good. But it's there on the sort of and you can see, you probably can't see, but I've got a picture with the caption, and it's retained all my other formatting as well. It was in the book. You can pick up the pictures, open them, and the maps as well, that work quite well as well. So yeah, but it's the sort of time-consuming bit to get it right. So if you've got a book with lots of images in it, can be a bit, once you've got it sorted, you can then just go through the book and do it. Yeah? You just need to get the first one or two right and get your table of contents working. So that's pretty much it. That's where we're at with EPUBs. It's not for everybody, but you're welcome to try it. If you want to learn how to do it and produce an EPUB which will look good on CVs and things, then great. It's a skill. If you want that skill, I'm happy to help you do it. Yeah, if that's what you want to do. But as you can see, it's that sort of techie, detaily, attention to detail job that you need to want to have to do, because I know that lots of, Isabel, for a start, would just run a mile from it. She just would hate it. She just doesn't want to format and detail stuff at all. She's much more strategic, whereas I'm a bit more detaily. So I want to look right. So any questions?
I think so.
Is it basically like 3 stages? So you write a document of the book, and then you put it into Illustrator, and then you convert it into
okay, so the basic strategy is that, yes, the author and editor will produce a document in Word, usually, yeah, which you will import into InDesign which will then do exactly what I've just done, except you won't do all that, some of the fiddly stuff, but you'll use InDesign to create the PDF, and that one of those buttons in that create in the book drop down was create the PDF. So you can create the PDF then do that first. That would be the PDF book, which you'd then send to the printer for printing. And then you would mess around, having got that right. You don't, because you don't want to start the ebook till you've got the print book away. Get the print book away, finished in InDesign, but do it with the ebook in mind, in thinking about what's the ebook going to look like. So getting the paragraph styles right and the spacings right and the pictures right. If you did all that right in the PDF version that's going to the printer, then the ebook's a doddle. What tends to happen is that people mess around with the book and do shortcuts that then when you come to EPUB, it doesn't recognize it. So, but if the same person's doing it from scratch to start with all the way through print book and EPUB, you could get a good result.
Yeah.
It's when you hand it to someone else and you're picking up someone else's mess. It's always the same, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Beth, that video that I sent you yesterday was the last tutorial that Dave did that had how to export or import the Word document into to create the PDF.
Yeah.
Okay, I will.
Yeah, so the previous training I did in the video and the notes are all about how to create the PDF version. Yeah,
so that's
so I'm kind of assuming that we've taken off from that. This is the sort of next stage. You've got that far. You've created the PDF book. You've liaised with me. I'm happy with it. Sandy's happy with it. It's gone to the printer, and that's the end of the story. Yeah, and then we take then we do the EPUB from there at that point. Yeah, so when I've started this afternoon was at that point the PDF has been made. You've got 4 or 5 book files or 4 or 5 documents already set up. You then make a copy of all those. Don't mess with the originals. Make a copy of those, and you mess with them to make the EPUB book. That's the essence of what. Sorry, I should maybe gone back to the beginning. I assumed that everyone.
Oh, sorry. I'll watch that video.
Yeah, I assumed everyone had got that far, but apologies if I jumped too far ahead for you. But that was, yeah. So that was where we were at. We've got to make the print book first, but make a good print book, and you'll make a good EPUB.
Cool.
And is it the same file that goes on Glassbox as the one that we send you for the Amazon Kindle?
Yes, we'll put the same. I think the Glassbox one I can't remember when we just did the Glassbox one whether it wants the image to cover separately or not. I can't remember what Ruth did with those. But yeah, it's the same. It's the same EPUB file.
Okay.
What we're trying to do with Glassbox is we haven't really done it enough yet. Is to use it as a means of producing an EPUB for review purposes that's copy protected. Yeah, you could send the EPUB to anybody if you wanted to, but they could then send it to the world.
Yeah,
it's not the EPUB that comes out of your InDesign program is not copy protected. It's just unless you put passwords in it. You could do that, I guess. But what Glassbox were offering was the option to be able to give a reviewer a free copy of a copy protected EPUB file that they could read on a device and review it and give you some feedback on it before you actually print it. Okay. So you could actually put some reviewers' comments and praise for the first edition, that sort of thing. You could put that into your final print. So you could do what Kirsty and I have been talking about the geology book, is to try and do an EPUB at the same time as it's going to printers, but to get an EPUB file that maybe get tweaked a bit later, but at least get something into Glassbox that could go to a reviewer early. Rather than wait till they've got the first time a reviewer sees the book, you've already printed several hundred copies, and if you want to put some comments in, you want to get a review copy out early, and doing it through ebook is probably quite a good way of doing it, I thought. So that's why we got involved with Glassbox. I don't think we've sold very many books directly through Glassbox, but that is the option, that you can buy the book directly from Glassbox through the Amazon Ringwood website without anywhere near Amazon. The problem is that you need a Glassbox reader app.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it puts it into a different folder, not your Amazon. If you're an Amazon Kindle reader and you've got them all in some sort of Amazon thing, I'm not sure that you can then import the Glassbox file into it. That's why it's probably not used as much as it could be. But anyway, that's the future. So that's where we're at with EPUBs. It's we're still, we sell more ebooks, 3 or 4 times more ebooks than we do print books these days. And around the world too, so it's the way to go, and it's where the marketing drive needs to go. We need to get these books right. They need to be metadata, get them properly advertised on Amazon, properly categorized, which is why I keep rabbiting on about getting categories right, because authors get upset about categories. Oh, it should be Tartan Noir, Scottish, this or that, and it's not in the right category, and it would be number one if it was in the right category, and that sort of thing. So authors get a bit uppity about categorization of their book, which is why I get upset, because I get told to put it on, to do the metadata or stick it on a database, and I have no idea what the book's about. I've never read it. And I can't second guess it, and I do second. If I did second guess it, I'll get it wrong. Because authors and editors have got their own idea what book, especially some of these cross-genre books that we do sometimes that have got, you know, a bit of everything in it. You know, they're not all Tartan Noir, not all football. Okay, so get in. If I know some of you are, I don't know which ones of you is doing which book, but whatever you're doing with the books, do just drop me an email if you need a one-on-one session to go over it. Send me the files if you're stuck. I can look at the files. We can look at it, share it on the screen, look at it together. Sort the problem out. Usually just, you know, just a quick Zoom call will do it.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you very much for doing that. I feel like it makes a lot more sense now.
Well, yeah, well, maybe. Wait till you try it. What on earth was he talking about?
Will you upload the video to YouTube, or will you?
Yeah, sure. I'll put it on YouTube and I'll send out just a link to it.
Perfect.
Great.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
See you soon. Okay.
Okay, bye.
Okay. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye. See you soon.
Bye bye.